A birth certificate is a vital record that documents the birth of a child. The term birth certificate can refer to either the original document certifying the circumstances of the birth or to a certified copy of or representation of the ensuing registration of that birth. Depending on the jurisdiction, a record of birth might or might not contain verification of the event by such as a midwife, a doctor. History and contemporary times. The documentation of births is a practice widely held throughout human civilization, especially in China, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Persia. The original purpose of vital statistics was for tax purposes and for the determination of available military manpower. Births were initially registered with churches, who maintained registers of births. This practice continued into the 19th century. The compulsory registration of births with governmental agencies is a practice that originated in the United Kingdom in 1853. The U.S. did not get a standardized system until 1902. Most countries have statutes and laws that regulate the registration of births. In all countries, it is the responsibility of the mother's physician, midwife, hospital administrator, or the parents of the child to see that the birth is properly registered with the appropriate government agency. The actual record of birth is stored with a government agency. That agency will issue certified copies or representations of the original birth record upon request, which can be used to apply for government benefits, such as passports. The certification is signed and/or sealed by the registrar or other custodian of birth records, who is commissioned by the government. The right of every child to a name and nationality, and the responsibility of national governments to achieve this are contained in Articles 7 and 8 in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. The child shall be registered immediately after birth and shall have the right from birth to a name, the right to acquire a nationality, and states parties undertake to respect the right of the child to preserve his or her identity, including nationality, name and family relations. It's a small paper, but it actually establishes who you are and gives access to the rights and the privileges and the obligations of citizenship. Despite 191 countries ratifying the convention, the births of millions of children worldwide go unregistered. By the very nature, data concerning unregistered children are approximate. However, it was estimated in 2008 that 51 million babies, more than 2/5 of those born worldwide, were not registered at birth. This phenomenon disproportionately impacts indigenous populations and, even in many developed countries, contributes to difficulties in fully accessing civic rights. Birth registration opens the door to rights to children and adults which many other human beings take for granted: to prove their age, to prove the nationality, to receive health care, to go to school, to take exams, to be adopted, to protection from underage, military service, to conscription, to marry, to open a bank account, to hold a driving license, to obtain a passport, to inherit money or property, and to vote, to stand for elected office. There are many reasons why births go unregistered, including social and cultural beliefs and attitudes, alternative documents and naming ceremonies, remote areas, poor infrastructure, economic barriers, lack of office staff, equipment and training, legal and political restrictions, a fear of discrimination and persecution, war, conflict and unrest, or simply the fact that there is no system in place. Retrospective registration may be necessarily where there is a backlog of children whose births have gone unregistered. In Senegal, the government is facilitating retrospective registration through free local court hearings, and the number of unregistered children has fallen considerably as a result. In Sierra Leone, the government gave the National Office of Births and Deaths special permission to issue birth certificates to children over 7. In Bolivia, there was a successful 3-year amnesty for the free registration of young people aged between 12 and 18. Statelessness, or the lack of effective nationality, impacts the daily lives of some 11–12 million people around the world. Perhaps those who suffer most are stateless infants, children, and youth. Though born and raised in the parents' country of habitual residence, they lack formal recognition of their existence. Canada. In Canada, the issuance of birth certificates is a function of the provinces or territories. Agencies of various ministers are in charge of issuing birth certificates. Alberta, Department of Vital Statistics. British Columbia, Vital Statistics Agency. Manitoba, Vital Statistics Agency. New Brunswick, Vital Statistics. Newfoundland and Labrador, Vital Statistics Government Services. Northwest Territories, Vital Statistics. Nova Scotia, Registrar General Division of Vital Statistics. Nunavut, Registrar General of Vital Statistics. Ontario, Office of Registrar General Service Ontario. Prince Edward Island, Vital Statistics. Quebec, Director of Civil State. Saskatchewan, Vital Statistics Information Service Corporation. Yukon, Vital Statistics. Types of certified copies issued. There are 2 types of birth certificates issued. Long form, legal size, a 2-page form with details of the person, the parent's place of birth, certification by the parents, signature and stamp of the issuing agency or department. Recent forms are in English and French. Short form a card provides name, birth date, place of birth, date of registration, date of issue, registration number, certificate number, and signature of Registrar General. England and Wales. In England and Wales, the description birth certificate is used to describe a certified copy of an entry in the birth register. Civil registration of births, marriages and deaths in England and Wales started on 1 July 1837. Registration was not compulsory until 1875. Following the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1874, which made registration of a birth the responsibility of those present at the birth. When a birth is registered, the details are entered into the register book at the local register office for the district in which the birth took place and is retained permanently in the local register office. A copy of each entry in the birth register is sent to the General Register Office. Pre-1837 birth and baptism records. Before the government's registration system was created, evidence of births and/or baptisms was dependent on the events being recorded in the records of the Church of England or in those of other various churches, not all of which maintained such records or all types of those records. Copies of such records are not issued by the General Register Office, but can be obtained from these churches, or from the local or national archive, which usually now keeps the records in original copy form. Types of certified copies issued in England and Wales. There are 2 types of birth certificates. A full certificate is a copy of the original entry in the birth register, giving all the recorded details. Information includes name, sex, date and place of birth of the child, father's name, place of birth and occupation, mother's name, place of birth, maiden name and occupation. Certificates for births before 1969 do not show the details of the parent's place of birth and registration. Before 1984 does not show mother's occupation, and births before 1911 do not show the mother's maiden name. The short certificate shows the child's full name, sex, date and place of birth. It does not give any particulars of the parents, therefore it is not proof of parentage. A short birth certificate is issued free of charge at the time of registration. Both versions of certificate can be used in the verification of identity by acting as a support to other information or documentation provided. Where proof of parentage is required, only a full certificate will be accepted. The original registrations are required by law to be issued in the form of certified copies to any person who identifies an index entry and pays the prescribed fee. They can be ordered by registered users from the General Register Office Certificate Ordering Service or by postal or telephone ordering from the General Register Office or by post or in person from a local registrars. If the birth was registered within the past 50 years, detailed information is required before a certificate will be issued. Russia. Earlier testimony was a small book format bound, now it's just a page format B5, provided with watermarks. The certificate has a series and number. Blank insert is made in Russian. In the case of being issued in one of the country's republics, its national language from liner can be made in Russian and in the official language of the republic on the model, approved by the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation. Filling a birth certificate can be filled with a handwritten way and with the use of technical equipment. When filling in the form is carried handwritten way, all records are made legibly in ink or paste blue or black. If you are using a computer, a typewriter die must be black. The quality of paste ink dye used in completing the documents should ensure the preservation of text documents for a set retention period. When filling out the birth certificate is not allowed to have it in patches, blots and erasures, cuts. Birth certificate is signed by the head of the registrar or other public authority issuing the certificate. Signature of the registrar should have a transcript and sealed with the official seal. Currently, information about the nationality of the parents is mentioned in the certificate on request. By default, this column is empty. When making a citizenship, a special insert is issued to the birth certificate. In testimony stamp, February 6, 2007, year of citizenship were cancelled. On the reverse side of the certificate began to put a stamp on the child's citizenship. This rule applies to newborns of those who change or restores documents. Old shells are valid for achieving a child 14 years old, and to change them is not necessary. The procedure for obtaining the birth certificate of the child's parents can get itself a child of full-aged guardian or caregiver. Issuance of the document is made in the offices of the registrar (ZAGs). With the loss of the certificate, a new document is issued by the registry office in the place of the original receipt on the basis of a written application. United States. In the U.S., the issuance of birth certificates is a function of the Vital Records Office of the states, capital district, territories and former territories. Birth in the U.S. establishes automatic eligibility for American citizenship, so a birth certificate from a local authority is commonly provided to the federal government to obtain a U.S. passport. However, the U.S. State Department does issue a consular report of birth abroad for children born to U.S. citizens, including births on military bases in foreign territory. The federal and state governments have traditionally cooperated to some extent to improve vital statistics. From 1900 to 1946, the U.S. Census Bureau designed standard birth certificates, collected vital statistics on a national basis, and generally sought to improve the accuracy of vital statistics. In 1946, that responsibility was passed to the U.S. Public Health Service. Unlike the British system of recording all births in registers, the states file an individual document for each and every birth. The National Center for Health Statistics creates standard forms that are recommended for use by the individual states to document births. However, states are free to create their own forms. As a result, neither the appearance nor the information content of birth certificate forms is uniform across states. These forms are completed by the attendant at birth or a hospital administrator, which are then forwarded to a local or state registrar, who stores the record and issues certified copies upon request. Types of certified copies issued. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General, as of 2000 there were more than 6,000 entities issuing birth certificates. The Inspector General report states that according to staff at the Immigration and Naturalization Services Forensics Document Laboratory, the number of legitimate birth certificate versions in use exceeded 14,000. Acceptance of short forms. In the case of applying for a U.S. passport, not all legitimate government-issued birth certificates are acceptable. A certified birth certificate has a registrar's raised, embossed, impressed or multicolored seal, registrar's signature, and a date the certificate was filed with the registrar's office, which must be within 1 year of your birth. Please note, some short versions of birth certificates may not be acceptable for passport purposes. Beginning April 1, 2011, all birth certificates must also include the full names of the applicant's parent. The U.S. State Department has paid close attention to abstract certificates from both Texas and California. There have been reports of a high instance of midwife registration fraud along the border region between Texas and Mexico, and the Texas abstract certificate form does not list the name or occupation of the attendant. The California abstract of birth did not include an embossed seal, was no longer considered a secure document, and have not been issued in California since 2001. Other forms. Most hospitals in the U.S. issue a souvenir birth certificate which may include the footprints of the newborn. However, these birth certificates are not legally accepted as proof of age or citizenship, and are frequently rejected by the Bureau of Consular Affairs during passport applications. Many Americans believe the souvenir records to be their official birth certificates, when in reality they hold little legal value. Birth certificates in cases of adoptions. In the United States, when an adoption is finalized, the government seals the original birth certificate and will issue a replacement birth certificate substituting the individual's birth name with the name selected by the adoptive parents, and replacing the birth parents' names with the adoptive parents. In those cases, adopted individuals are not granted access to their own original birth certificates upon request. Laws vary depending on the state where the birth was originally registered and the adoption was finalized. Some states allow adopted people unrestricted access to their own original birth certificates, while in others the certificate is available only if the biological parents have given the permission or a petition has been granted by the court of jurisdiction. Other jurisdictions do not allow adopted people access to their own original birth certificates under any circumstances.